Welcome to the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. I'm Stephen Rothberg, the founder of College Recruiter job search site. At College Recruiter, we believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career.
And I'm Peter Zollman, founding principal of the AIM Group, the leading global business intelligence service for marketplaces and classified advertising companies. We consult with recruitment marketplaces companies and publish AIM Group recruitment intelligence and a free weekly digest. We also host the annual Global RecBuzz conference.
This is the podcast for you to learn more about how to create, manage, and work with general, niche, and aggregator job boards and recruitment marketplaces. Hey, Peter, great to be with you again today.
Thank you very much. It is good to be with you. I hope wherever you happen to be in the world is pleasant, the weather is nice, and your thunderstorms and rainstorms and whatever you went through in Brighton are behind you.
The weather is always perfect wherever I am. I bring it with me.
Pardon me while I choke, gag, and otherwise enough said. When faith is with you, the weather is always lovely.
Yes, my boss and my wife, she definitely makes sure that the weather is operating properly as well as the business, and maybe in that priority. The AIM Group stories that you're following, what's really catching your interest right now?
We've been looking a lot at partnerships between job boards and other job boards or recruitment marketplaces, between TikTok and Indeed in Singapore for video, which is one we're looking at closely, between job boards and NGOs and government agencies in Africa. There's still a lot that job boards can do to build their businesses through partnerships. It's not just about we're us and we don't work with anybody else.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to be very interested to read that in the report that I get from the AIM Group, because partnerships really allow you to magnify your presence. We don't believe at College Recruiter that we should be doing everything internally. That that we'll build by partner. If somebody's a lot better at something that is tangential to our business, then I think a partnership is really the way to go. Are you seeing that across geographic lines, industry lines? Where are you seeing that?
What struck me the most when we were at RecBuzz in Amsterdam a little while back was Diane Mollem of Rome, Africa, which has Jobberman and Brighter Monday, was talking about working with NGOs and government agencies. And we've seen a lot of that, but we've only seen it in, a little brief here and a little brief there, and we really haven't focused on it. And it makes a ton of sense to not just be a standalone, do your own thing job board. Many work with associations, or many are owned or operated by associations, but partnerships make a ton of sense, especially when you can add 1 + 1 and get 3. Doesn't always work that way, and they can be headaches, but they can also make a ton of sense. And I think some recruitment marketplaces are just way too quick to dismiss, oh, we could never do that, oh, we don't want to do that, or whatever.
For those who don't know about Rome, Africa, ROAM Africa, fascinating, amazing work that they're doing. Well, we should probably bring in today's guest. Malcolm Myers is the founder and CEO of European Internet Ventures. Malcolm is a very well-known marketplace advisor, and he probably doesn't want me dating him, but he's spent the past 15 or so years working with founders, which means he's at least 20, to raise capital, or sometimes to sell their marketplaces around the world. Malcolm, for people who don't know a lot about you other than my little Twitter bio of you, what else do they know about you?
So I've been in this space for 15 years, as you correctly say. I actually used to run M&A at Naspers, which has been a big player in the classified space. And I've been running my own advisory business for about a decade. as you correctly said, doing M&A and capital raising in what I call online marketplaces, and within that broader area, jobs and what I would call jobs classifieds, or a lot of you guys would call jobs boards, has been an important vertical within that overall classifieds and marketplaces remit.
So also marketplaces that deal with autos, real estate, etc., right? Not just exclusively the job and recruitment space.
You're right, Stephen, and that's what makes it even more interesting, because there are many things which the different verticals, as I call them, car, real estate, or jobs, have in common. And then when they don't have those things in common, it's also very instructive to try and understand why. Why might one of these verticals be different from another? And although the company is called European Internet Ventures, I've have experience working in every continent of the world, and so also you have those regional differences as well, which help to play out and make this space even more interesting.
Investors, what do they want to do in the recruitment field right now?
So I think right now is a very precise point in time. I think if we look at historically, if we look at the past 3 years, for example, history sounds a long way back, but if we look at the past 3 years, there's been more than $20 billion invested in this space by PE and VCs. And that means that whoever's listening to this podcast is in a space which has attracted a lot of capital. And when you analyze based upon, say, PitchBook data, what's the trend been for the first 6 months of this year? Well, funding is still up compared to the first 6 months of 2019 or 2020. So there's still has been, until now at least, a very substantial and healthy amount of private capital coming into the recruitment space. And when you look at how that splits out, it's very interesting to see that the biggest chunk of all this, it's about a 20 billion, as I said. Roughly a third of that has been PE funds investing into these later stage platforms, and I'm talking about specifically recruitment and staffing platforms like House of HR or Adecco or Hayes. So that's one chunk that has attracted a lot of late stage capital, in particular debt capital. And then perhaps one of the most exciting areas has been what I call vertical marketplaces. Vertical marketplaces have also received about 5 billion in capital over the same time. And for me, a vertical marketplace is really a platform that's focusing on employers from a very specific area, like IT, or it could be catering and retail, blue collar style work. And these verticals can create a lot more value than a simple job board, because their model is not just to charge a monthly fee or a click-through rate, but it is really to charge a share of the total payroll paid. And in return, they seem to be getting very, very good at identifying exactly what kinds of candidates fit best for their employer customers in a way which is a level of detail one higher than the traditional staffing firms would have done if you go back 10, 20 years. So that area is really interesting. And then there's also some more, let's call them more software-centric areas, which the VCs have been very excited about. The ATS has been a very, very strong theme, and companies like Personio raising almost $500 million in the time period I've referred to is one very interesting area. And then one other is background checking. It might sound like it's pretty niche. It's not. There was $1.5 billion invested into background checking. Obviously, very automated, very software driven, very data driven. Companies like Checker raising $250 million, for example. And then one of the other areas I'm really excited about is what I call sourcing boosters. So these are companies which are very good at bringing often passive candidates to companies like JobSports. One sourcing booster I like is Eightfold.ai, who raised 220 million over this time period, and they're very good at sort of looking into the ATS of any company and seeing whether there are profiles there that could be relevant for current hiring needs. And then finally, the runners up are the sort of the testing, screening, interviewing style businesses, which I think will also play an increasingly important role. Companies like Karat, K-A-R-A-T, in the IT in the IT testing and interviewing area, for example, would be a good example of that. And maybe just a final thought on this question. Um, the classic job boards have not been a source of funding over the past few years. That's interesting in itself. Um, Maybe it's because most of the players are already there and already generating cash, but that's simply not been an area which investors have been focusing on.
We'll be back right after this break. This is Stephen Rothberg with College Recruiter. Are you a recruiter feeling overwhelmed by the fast-paced world of recruitment? The Recruitment Flex has got you covered. Serge and Shelley bring you the latest trends and challenges in the industry, along with practical advice and insights from their over 40 years of experience. But that's not all. They also invite thought leaders and influencers from the recruitment industry to share their perspectives and sometimes have a little fun along the way. Tune into the Recruitment Flex and take your career to the next level. No flex zone except when it comes to recruitment. Then it's all flex all the time. Find the Recruitment Flex on all major podcast players. Don't miss out on the latest in recruitment. Subscribe now. Welcome back to the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. I think by some estimates, there are at least tens of thousands, perhaps 100,000 different job boards, recruitment marketplaces around the world. You obviously talked about some kinds of business models that definitely aren't job boards, recruitment marketplaces like Personio, for example. But if you were advising an investor or somebody who was looking to start a new business, where would you tell them to put their money? Like, what's the greatest potential, do you think, in the next 2-3 years in the online recruitment space?
That's a great question. I think that what's interesting is how technology is making that task of sourcing candidates and matching them to jobs work better. And I think for those tens of thousands of job boards, understanding how technology can add value to what they've been doing is really important. And that's both important for the jobs boards, and it's also a very interesting potential investment opportunity for VCs. And again, picking up from my comments to the previous question, it's about job boards understanding the role of sourcing boosters, how I can either use programmatic or some other ways of bringing passive candidates to my job board. I think that's a really interesting space. It's less developed in Europe than it is in the US, and in both continents, it has a long way to go. And then yes, the ability to add value to those passive candidates through testing them, through engaging them, through using bots and other formats to really see, are they possibly interested in a specific opportunity, and trying to get a little bit more relevant information to make that lead ever more valuable as you move down the funnel. I think businesses like that have a huge amount of benefit to bring. Um, and then, of course, we all talk about AI, and we don't really ever mean the same thing when we talk about it. But the ability to have a level of intelligence that enables a job board to match the candidates which it's getting with the positions it's advertising. This will be, in my view, absolutely critical, and that could be anything as simple as the ability to break a specific role into maybe five key areas of expertise, or five key things which that applicant needs to have done, and then ranking those applicants based upon how many fit, or five boxes, or four or three. And that ability to stack rank applications, in my view, again, can create a huge amount of value. One of the biggest problems today with job boards is when you have basically no constraints on how many applicants can apply, or what kind of applicant can apply for a particular role. That often ends up destroying value. The recruiter ideally would just like to have one perfectly qualified candidate come through, and not have hundreds who may only tick one, two, or three of the boxes. So I think companies which are good at linking together these different value creating tasks will create a lot of value, and I think it will also remain very popular for investors. So either the enabling companies who are doing this, or a jobs board that's able to bring it all together into a more value added overall service. I think those companies will also be of interest.
So, from an investment and a for sale perspective, a job board has to be a lot more than a job board and needs to incorporate some, many, most, all of those elements to be attractive for sale or attractive to investors.
I think that's exactly right, Peter. I think when we look at other classifieds verticals, you have companies like Rightmove in the UK, or Auto Trader in the UK, that are so dominant. If anybody's interested in a car, 90% of the whole inventory will be on Auto Trader, or 90% of all homes will be on Rightmove. In the job space, that's just not the case. And even the most successful, what you guys still call job boards, around, like Stepstone in Germany, they're very, very strong, and the monetization is very impressive. But they're very strong only in an increasingly narrow set of white collar um, positions, and they don't have that overall hold of the market in the same way in Germany the top car or real estate portal does. So I think, given that you don't have that sort of natural network effect working in anything like the same level, you don't have that same capture of traffic and inventory in jobs as you do in car and real estate. Therefore, you have to create value in a different way.
Speaking of Stepstone, by the way, rumor has it, the AIM Group has reported it, that Axel Springer, which is a parent company, is working on an IPO. Of course, with today's economic environment, who the heck knows when they will get that IPO out the door? But we certainly have heard about it and have reported on the rumors, if that were to take. If you were to give a job board or recruitment marketplace operator one piece of advice for finding investment, or if he/she wants to sell the company, what can they do, especially in these somewhat crazy economic times? High employment in most markets, recession, maybe, maybe not, etc. What's the one piece of advice?
I'm not sure one piece of advice will be enough, but there are a number of things I would focus on. The first is monetization. I don't think that pay to post is usually very effective in extracting all the value there is on a jobs board. One of the best cases is if the client, so the employer, wants 20 call center agents and they only have to pay for one call center ad, they're getting rather good value for money, in the way that wouldn't be the case if it was a pay per click or paper application, or other formats. So I think the first thing I would say is make sure you have your monetization model truly optimized. I would then add that cyclicality is an interesting one. When is the right time to sell a jobs board? At the moment, as you said, we have at the moment we're suffering from a shortage of candidates or people proactively looking for work. Um, and there have been times, if we go back to the global financial crisis, 2009, where you had a lot of people looking for work for which there wasn't an employer. But most of the time, there is an ability to monetize what job boards are doing, as long as they are good at. At the moment, it's about being very good at sourcing passive candidates. And in the future, it might be about being better at matching amazing candidates who've become redundant to employers who would probably want them, even if they're not proactively seeking. So I think playing on the passiveness, whether it's candidates in the current market or whether it's passive employers where there's higher unemployment, these are also terrific skill sets which the smartest job boards are beginning to develop.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. Thank you, Malcolm. So, quick question before we leave off, and that is for the job boards and recruitment marketplaces that are listening to the podcast. Do you feel that their businesses, the industry is dying? Is it headed for extinction, or are we in a period where evolution or maybe even revolution is necessary?
Terrific question. So I think there are parallels from other verticals which we can consider, um, and in particular, I would look at the difference between a traditional ads only classified site that's just selling ads versus a site which is taking care of really screening through buyers and sellers. And think of cars, for example. The difference between a car site that just lists ads of cars for sale, where you don't know whether the seller really owns the car, you don't know how long they've owned it for, you don't know what condition it's in, you don't have price guidance, and then the seller doesn't know whether the buyer is legit, whether the buyer is trustworthy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the marketplace is failing to eliminate traditional friction, and as a result, you can't monetize that site nearly as well as one where if you imagine, well, yes, the marketplace is going to vet the seller. They're going to have to make sure the car is inspected so you know exactly what it is. They're going to give price guidance to show where the price of that car fits within the range of other transactions. The platform's going to guarantee the payment through an escrow service. And so on and so on. You can imagine how, when you add that additional value and take away that additional marketplace friction, you can end up monetizing it much better. And I think the same will apply in the world of job boards, a little along the lines which we were discussing earlier. And it's a little bit when you move from a simple list in the world of job boards, I think it's closer to comparing a classic listings only business with some of the deeper marketplaces we see, for example, a job and talent, where you're much closer to this second model, where in the job and talent model, they're getting much better at that they're very focused. First of all, they know exactly in their blue collar segment area the types of candidates which their employers are looking for. They're able to vet them. They learn about them. They use that information from surveys and from previous hires to enrich the value of the listing, and it simply means that they can place candidates with much more certainty of success. And at the same time, the employers they're working with, they can get to understand their needs better and better. And I think it's that ability to deepen the service layer, both on the candidate side and the employer side, which will ultimately end up delivering value. And I think that those job boards which are able to go deeper into the verticals in this way are the ones who will not only survive but thrive.
Awesome. Well, Malcolm, thank you so much for joining us today. For listeners who want to learn more about European Internet Ventures or Malcolm Myers or having a home in Switzerland, how should they reach out to you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and there's also a website, europeaninternetVentures.com. So I'll be very happy to connect with anyone who's listened to the podcast.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Peter, any last words?
Just thank you very much. Malcolm always speaks at our conferences and is always one of the highest rated speakers, and now you know why.
Perfect.
Thank you
much.
Thank you, guys.
Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces is a co-production of Evergreen Podcasts, College Recruiter, and the AIM Group.
Please subscribe for free on your favorite app. Review it. 5 stars are always nice. And recommend it to a couple of people you know who want to learn more about job boards and recruitment marketplaces.
Special thanks to our producer and engineer, Ian Douglas. I'm your host, Peter Zollman of the AIM Group, the leading global consultancy in the field of marketplaces and classified advertising. Find out more about our reports on recruitment marketplaces, job boards, and classifieds, including our new Recruitment Marketplaces Annual, at aimgroup.com/reports.
I'm your host, Stephen Rothberg, of job search site College Recruiter. Each year, we help more than 12 million candidates find great new jobs. Our customers are primarily Fortune 1000 companies, government agencies, and other employers who hire at scale and advertise their jobs with us. You can reach me at stephen@collegerecruiter.com.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show.
Dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We out.